Welcome to our channel, HASHMICLINICS.
All right, let's jump right in and explore the materia medica of a remedy that's, as common in the kitchen as it is potent in the clinic, Allium Sativum, or common garlic. What we're going to do here is build a really clear clinical picture of this powerful, but let's be honest, often overlooked constitutional remedy. So here's how we'll break it down. We're going to build this remedy picture really systematically. We'll kick things off with the foundational constitution, the type of person we're looking at. Then we'll layer on the mental state and the general symptoms. And finally, we're going to zero in on its absolute keynotes in the gut and lungs, look at its broader clinical uses, and make some crucial comparisons to help you prescribe with real confidence. Now, this single quote from the Materia Medica, this is our anchor point. It just perfectly encapsulates the central essence of the Allium Sativum patient. You've got someone with a fleshy constitution who eats way more, especially meat, than they drink. This immediately paints such a vivid picture and gives us our primary theme right from the get-go. Okay, so let's start right there with that foundation, the garlic constitution. Understanding the type of patient who benefits most from this remedy is really the key to unlocking the entire case. This clinical summary just reinforces that picture, doesn't it? It points directly to a patient whose main complaints, the dyspepsia, the cataract, they all stem from a lifestyle of excess. This is what we mean by the high liver, that individual who really indulges, particularly at the dinner table, and whose body is now starting to show the strain. So this slide really pulls together the core, the nucleus of the remedy. And I want you to notice how these features create a very clear pathological pattern. It's not just about being fleshy. It's that specific combo of a voracious, meat-heavy appetite that leads directly to the chronic dyspepsia and these very distinct catarrhal states. And they're marked by that peculiar, copious, sweetish saliva and the really offensive sputum. Okay, now for the mental picture. You might be expecting, a jolly, happy-go-lucky personality to match that gourmand constitution, but what we often find is the complete opposite, a state of really profound anxiety and fearfulness. So the crucial mental keynote here is this deep hypochondriacal anxiety. The patient is terrified they'll never recover, they have a fear of being poisoned, and they get this idea that they can't tolerate any medicine. This isn't just simple worry, it's a deep-seated discontent and impatience that can even show up as an impulse to just run away. And, critically, all of these mental symptoms get much, much worse when they're alone. Now let's dig into the foundational symptoms, the generals and modalities. Think of these as the threads that run through the entire case, governing all the particular complaints we're going to talk about. And here we have an absolute golden keynote. This unique pain character, a gradual increase to a climax, followed by a gradual decrease, is so characteristic of the remedy. It should immediately make you think of stana metallicum, right? When a patient describes their pain with this very specific rhythm, Allium Sativum has to be on your list of differentials. It's a huge clue. This slide perfectly illustrates the central conflict of the remedy. It's a real paradox. On one hand, you have this huge, voracious appetite for rich foods like meat and butter. But on the other hand, their digestive system is so fragile that the slightest dietary misstep, or even just drinking some bad water, causes significant distress. And thermally, don't forget, they are chilly, very sensitive to cold air, and aggravated by any change in temperature. The remedy's action is so powerfully centered on the digestive and respiratory tracts, and this is where we find some of its most peculiar, most guiding symptoms. And here it is. This is one of the most reliable guiding symptoms for Allium Sativum, a true, strange, rare, and peculiar symptom, the sensation of a hair on the tongue. But what makes it so unique to this remedy is the modality. It gets worse when reading. This is absolutely a question worth asking in a suspected case. So if we look at the digestive keynotes, you can see this clear pattern of fermentation and irritation. It starts right in the mouth with a pale tongue that has these red, prominent papillae and that hallmark copious sweetish saliva. Then it moves down to the stomach, causing burning eructations, and into the intestines with painful trapped gas that's only relieved by doubling over, that classic colic modality. The respiratory picture is just as profound. It's this deep-seated rattling catarrh. The real key is the morning cough. It produces a ton of copious, tenacious mucus that's really hard to get up, and when it does come up, it can be extremely fetid, really offensive. That offensiveness points to its usefulness in serious pathologies like bronchiectasis and even as a supportive remedy in pulmonary tuberculosis. Now, while the gut and lungs are clearly the epicenters, Allium sativum's influence definitely extends to other key clinical areas. And these symptoms can often be the final piece of the puzzle, the final confirmation for your prescription. So pay close attention to these clinical areas. First, that hip pain. It can be absolutely intolerable, located right in the psoas and iliacus muscles, and it's characteristically worse from the slightest movement. And the female sphere? Look for suppurating pimples on the vulva that appear during the menses. Also, keep in mind its vasodilatory properties, which can lead to hypotension. And finally, that headache modality is a classic. Worse before menses, gets better as the flow starts, and then comes right back after the flow stops. And here is a really remarkable keynote in children, one that's easily missed. The legs just don't grow as rapidly as the rest of the body. This isn't just some isolated symptom. You see it in a child who is pale, maybe a bit marasmic, with sluggish bowels, and who is late in learning to walk. When this very unique developmental picture presents itself, Allium sativum is a key remedy to have in your mind. Okay, finally, to really solidify our understanding, let's look at some key comparisons and prescribing pearls. This is what's going to help you differentiate the remedy in the clinic and recall its essence right when you need it most. This slide gives us a really clear summary of the modalities. So what makes things worse? Note the strong aggravations from changes in temperature, from cold, wet weather, and of course, from their dietary indiscretions. But the key takeaway for relief, especially for that abdominal colic, is not one great amelioration, sitting bent over. Differentiating Allium sativum from a major polycrest like Lycopodium is an absolutely crucial clinical skill because they both present with significant dyspepsia and bloating. So what's the key? It's the appetite. The Allium sativum patient is a gourmand with a voracious appetite. The Lycopodium patient, in contrast, has weak digestion and feels full after just a few bites. The cravings are another dead giveaway. Meat and butter for Allium sativum versus sweets for Lycopodium. Remedy relationships. You know they're essential for effective case management. Take note that Arsenicum album is a key complementary remedy, and that's likely because of the shared hypochondriacal anxiety and those burning digestive complaints. But be aware of the incompatibility with its botanical cousin, Allium cepa. And interestingly, Lycopodium, which we just compared it to, can actually serve as an antidote. So let's ask ourselves a really important question. Where do we as clinicians most often miss this remedy? Well, it's often overlooked in two key areas. First, in those cases of really stubborn, intractable hip pain, where we might just default to remedies like rust tox or colosynthis without considering the full constitutional picture. And second, in cases of chronic fetid bronchitis, where other remedies might seem more obvious if we just don't inquire about the digestive state and the patient's modalities. To wrap it all up, just let these prescribing pearls guide you. First, think Gorman's dyspepsia whenever you see fleshy patients with complaints from dietary excess. Second, always listen for that unique pain character, the gradual increase and gradual decrease. Third, ask about the saliva. That copious Swedish saliva is such a powerful confirming symptom. And finally, remember the hip. For that intractable psoas muscle pain, it can be a highly specific and effective remedy. Keeping these keynotes in mind will really allow you to apply this incredibly useful remedy with confidence.
Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi is a distinguished homeopathic physician, educator, and researcher with over 4 decades of clinical and teaching experience. He is widely respected for his deep command of Materia Medica, respiratory, and constitutional prescribing, combined with a practical, patient-centered approach. Dr. Hashmi has dedicated his career to training generations of homeopathic doctors, blending classical principles with modern clinical insight. He is also known for his innovative work in digital homeopathy, developing educational content, clinical tools, and AI-assisted systems to enhance remedy selection and case analysis. With a strong commitment to ethical practice and lifelong learning, Professor Dr. Rafat Hashmi continues to guide, inspire, and elevate the standards of homeopathic education and patient care.